thanks everyone for watching and sharing my story. Obviously, we're doing 14 days, but the main bit I really want to keep you all intrigued for is the aftermath, the 14 years. Keep watching.
Hi everybody, thanks for tuning in to episode 3 of 14 Days, 14 Years On with Brant Webb. On a cold Melbourne day and a cold Tasmanian day, Brant joins us. Brant, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Peter.
Now, at the end of the last episode, you covered off that just after the accident had happened, you covered off that you had the essentials of life, and that's what kept you going at that moment. But you had to make a plan for afterwards. Tell us about what happened once you'd got that tidied over.
Well, yeah, so we ended up in the cage, sitting there. We had to make a plan of attack. The attack was we needed to get out of there. We didn't like where we were, so I decided I was going to go and dig a tunnel to get us out. So I started digging this tunnel, and it wasn't real big, obviously. You know, you just sort of fit yourself in, and then as I was digging, I'd put it behind me and then scrape it back into the cage, and then I got it. Once I got it sort of half my length, you know, like it was starting to get a bit harder. Then it got about the body length, and I was pushing back my feet, and you know, and it was taking hours, 20 hours. That's how it.
And what did you have to dig with?
Oh yeah, I only had my hands, so I found I had a pair of gloves on my belt, so I was pretty happy about that. And I can't remember if I was wearing them or if they were on my belt, and I may have been wearing them at the time of the accident. But and then anyway, so I wore the fingers out of them. I couldn't believe that I'd wore the fingers out of gloves, you know, because I'd never done that in my life. And then so I turned them around to get the other side going, and I dug with that side, and I wore that side out, and then finally about 5 odd metres in, like it was a fair way in, and I fell asleep in there. Like I must have, you know, like because it'd been a pretty harrowing experience so far. I fell asleep in there, and it was wet, you know, and I was cold because there was a bit of air, you know, like, and then I reached the end, and there was a piece of mesh, and I just thought, and it was like I'd failed, you know, because and I was so disappointed. I crawled back into the cage. I said to Todd, I said, "We've got to find some bolt cutters, mate." You know, like, well, we knew there was bolt cutters in there, in the cage, but there was so much rock in there. Anyway, we never found it. There was another seismic event while I was sitting in the cage, and I looked down that little tunnel, and there was about 4 inches of tunnel left. So I was pretty glad I was actually not in that tunnel when the seismic event happened. I wouldn't be here today.
And you spoke about obviously you had the lights, but there was the darkness in the mine. You spoke about that once you got out there, that you didn't know what dark was until you got out of the mine.
Yeah, well, that's it, Peter. Well, you know, you and I are going to talk about that a bit later on. That's what this is all about. The people who are out there wondering why has Brant come forward 14 years later, you know, and done this video. It's because of a reason. And when I interview Peter, you'll know the reason. The reason is pretty damn special to me. So I can't wait until the 14 days is over. We start working into the 14 years. So
yeah, it's a great story, mate, and we'll look forward to one, talking about how well you're going, and two, telling the viewers about how you've got there. So you spoke about the seismic event coming down and crushing the tunnel that you'd managed to dig, the 5 metres. What was the first sound, or how did you first know that the rescuers were on their way and that there may be a chance to be found?
Well, we could hear the noise in the decline because we had in between there was a vent bag flapping. We thought it was a vent bag flapping, but it was actually rock still peeling off the backs, the ceiling. The rock was still peeling off like in sheets. And we actually thought it was vent bag flapping in the breeze, you know, like if like most miners will know, if you don't put a clip in the end, they flap. And if you don't restrict the air a bit, you know, they flap. So we actually thought it was that, but it wasn't at all. It was rock was peeling off the backs, hitting the top of our pile of dirt is what we could hear. In between that, we could hear the noise of vehicles and drills, and everything was going, you know. So we thought, well, they're coming in for us. We just didn't know at that point of time, you know, how long they were going to be, how they were going to find us, you know. It was a waiting game at that point.
Yeah. At some point, what was the first signal that you knew they were coming for you?
Well, the first thing we knew they were coming in was they had a loader, and the loader hit the back of the telehandler that we were attached to with the cage. And all the rock, you can imagine, oh, you can't imagine, but all the rock just fell. Like, as soon as it touched it, we were covered in like 4 inches of small rock, you know,
yeah.
And a couple of...
And there wasn't a lot of space in there already. I mean, we spoke about the cage and how it had come down with some of the mesh in the last interview, but if we have a look at the screen now, this photo is obviously taken after they were able to get cameras in there, but that's literally how much room you had in that cage.
Yeah. So that if you turn that on its side, because I'm laying down there.
Yes.
If you turn that on its side, and you can see my gloves there, and everything else in there was in the cage when we were doing the job. So the straps were there and everything else. So what we tried to do was peg some straps around all the rocks so that they weren't going to fall on my head. So, so it looks a bit ratty, but it sort of, I think it was a bit of mind over matter on that point of time. Yeah.
As in that was what you did to occupy your time?
No, yeah, to make yourself feel a bit more secure.
Mm.
Yeah. Probably wouldn't have stopped the thing, but at that point in time, it was sort of more trying to keep a mental state of positiveness, you know.
Yeah, wonderful. So, well, as you say, that was how you were able to keep moving forward again with, like in the last episode we covered, with valuing what you did have, which was the essentials of life, over what you didn't have. So,
yeah.
And at the time when you heard the sound of that telehandler, it must have been jubilation at that point.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we Todd hadn't had a smoke for many a year, but he had a smoke then. Yeah. And you know, I shouldn't have shared my smokes. One thing you never do with people is share your cigarettes. You know? You never get them back. And so, but yeah, no, it was. Well, that was the start of this roller coaster ride that I kept calling the roller coaster ride for years, because my emotions were, they'd go down that far and then they'd lift that high and then they'd go down that far again when, you know, the realisation is, okay, they found us, well, now what are they going to do? You know, like, you know, it's like when they found us alive, that was the big clincher for me, you know, like, yeah, to be found was one thing, but to be alive was a better thing, you know. It's and well, as
you say, plenty of ups and downs, and it's a fascinating story. In the next episode, we'll cover off why the boys had to wait a lot longer than they thought they would have to be rescued, and also to the steps in to get them out. So again, Brant, thanks very much for your time. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll look forward to seeing you in the next episodes.
Thanks, Peter.